You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Arsenal are out of the FA Cup, but was Mikel Arteta right to make so many changes? We're going to be discussing that. We're going to be discussing the latest on Martin Odegaard. We're going to be talking about the fact that Mesut Ozil has finally officially joined Fenerbahce, and we're going to be discussing some of the interesting reports coming out this evening with regards to the future of Lucas Torreira. All of that and plenty more to come on this live edition of the Chronicles of a Gooner. A good evening. Hello to everybody who's joining us live at the moment. And of course, hello to all of those who'll be listening via the podcast format. And of course, to those who'll be watching this back on replay. Hope you're all well. The podcast is coming to you this evening from a snowy North London. People have been kind of jumping up and down about it, getting excited, going outside to make snowmen. It was fun with the little one for about 15 minutes. And then my hands got cold. I got cold. And to be quite frank, I'd had enough of it by then and I wanted to come back inside. So yeah, if you are in London or if you are in an area that's been affected by the snow, make sure you take care. The roads are a little bit slippery. I've been out there today. So yeah, just stay careful, stay safe above everything else. Feels like this is a really long intro, but it's probably because I actually don't want to talk about the main subject of tonight's podcast. You know, Southampton won, Arsenal 0 in the FA Cup fourth round. Our defence of our FA Cup just kind of collapsed without a real fight, without a real good effort, a real strong effort. How am I feeling about that? I'm feeling as disappointed actually as every other Arsenal fan out there. And I know that some of you have kind of seen some of my tweets and stuff and probably feel like I'm a little bit less bothered about it than others. It's not that I'm less bothered about it. Look, I don't ever want Arsenal to lose games. The FA Cup to me has meant so much growing up. It's one of the reasons that I became an Arsenal fan. You know, in the early years of me being an Arsenal fan, 1996, 1997, Arsene Wenger came along. 1998, he wins the double. And part of that double was the FA Cup. And I remember it. I remember the final against Newcastle United. I remember it all clearly. And it's been a cup competition that I'm very fortunate to have seen off the top of my head. And correct me if I'm wrong here. I've seen Arsenal win the FA Cup 8 times. 8 times in what? 24 years of properly supporting the club. You can't support the club properly when you're a little kid. So what, in 24 years, I've seen it 8 times. You know, that's 1 every 3 years, isn't it? Yeah. 8, 16, 24. Yeah. It's a pretty good record. And so, of course, this cup means a lot to me. Of course, this cup means the world to me, just like it does for so many others. But you also have to understand that we don't currently have the squad to compete on so many fronts. We also are experiencing the strangest football season of all time, in the sense of, yeah, we talk about the Premier League and the English clubs having to deal with a congested schedule, but this is worse than normal. You know, this is even worse than normal. We're talking about an Arsenal side now that, despite having gone out of the FA Cup, now have to play 9 games between now and the end of February. It's a lot of matches, and people will throw the counter argument back and say, yeah, you know, Arsenal are not the only club that have to deal with this. And I get all of that. I totally get that. And I understand it. But it just feels like the meltdown, the reaction that has come off the back of this has just been so over the top. You know, Southampton are a very good side. Southampton are a team who incidentally sit above us in the Premier League despite having played a game less. And I know there are a few of those right now, but the point is here, we didn't have a divine right to go to St Mary's and win the game. We didn't have a divine right to go and play Ralph Hasenhüttl's side off of the park and blow them away and progress to the next round without any difficulty, whether Mikel Arteta picked the first team or not. Now, he made a number of changes, and I think there is a fair case that says when we're building a little bit of momentum and we've kind of turned the corner in the sense of we were in dreadful relegation fodder form, and then we got back on track, that you kind of want to try and maintain that momentum as best as possible. And I understand that and I get that. But at the same time, you have to think about the bigger picture. And the bigger picture, whether people want to admit it or not, is that the Premier League offers us a route back into the Champions League, which is ultimately where Arsenal want to be. The Europa League offers us a route back into the Champions League, where Arsenal want to be. The FA Cup does not offer us that. And people would do well to remember that. It's all great winning the FA Cup. As I said to you, I've seen Arsenal win tons of FA Cups. We enjoyed Arsenal winning the FA Cup last season. Why? Because aside from it, the general kind of joy that comes from winning an FA Cup, we had such a bad, dreadful, horrible season in which Unai Emery was sacked and we changed manager midway through and then we never really got going. And then to finish it on a high was just a really nice way to kind of feel some belief again, to feel confident again about what we could achieve going forward and to feel like there had been some progress there. The reality is that FA Cup win last season probably, gave us a bit of a false security in terms of where Arsenal actually were as a team. The fact that we beat two top sides in Manchester City and Chelsea along the way obviously added to that. But the point I'm trying to make here is, if you had asked me at the start of the season to rank the competitions in order of priority, me personally, I'd have gone like this. I'd have gone Premier League, it's your bread and butter, it's the league. Over 38 games, you've got an opportunity to consolidate yourself in a position where you can qualify for Europe. In a cup competition, anything can happen, anything can go wrong. Only takes one off day and you can't rectify it because of the nature of the competition. But I'd have ranked the competitions in terms of their priority for Arsenal this season in this order: Premier League, Europa League. Why? Because those two offer us a route back into the Champions League promised land. Then the FA Cup, and then the Carabao Cup. Okay, so I cannot sit here and completely destroy Mikel Arteta for the fact that he made those changes, for the fact that he prioritized the league game on Tuesday night over this one. You've also got to take into account some of the individuals that were left out and the reasons they were left out and their recent history, because that will tell you a lot about why Mikel Arteta felt he needed to do that. For example, Emile Smith-Rowe started the season struggling with injury, had injury problems last season, has come in and made such a fundamental difference to this side, but always in the back of your mind, as an Arsenal fan, you're watching Emile Smith-Rowe play and you're worried that he might break down. And if he did break down, the consequence of that would be huge, because simply we do not have another player currently in our squad with that same profile. I know Martin Odegaard's coming in. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But the point is that Emile Smith-Rowe has had issues. So to give him a rest, to give him a break is not a ludicrous decision. Kieran Tierney just about made it for that Newcastle game in the Premier League. Just about made it. Probably, you could argue, pushed through a barrier that maybe he shouldn't have so that he could be involved in that game. Again, it's completely understandable why Mikel Arteta felt like this one was an opportunity to give him a break. Thomas Partey was on the substitutes bench. Alexander Lacazette was on the bench. Bukayo Saka was on the bench. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang actually was due to be part of that squad as well. And a lot of you have sort of kicked off on social media. Why the hell did Mikel Arteta put two goalkeepers on the bench? That wasn't his intention. Aubameyang got sent home because of a private issue, which we don't know what it is. So I'm not going to sit here and speculate and have a go about that, because we don't know what it is. It could be something serious. And as we all know, as much as we love this game and this sport and this club, family comes first. So if it's a family personal issue, then nobody can have an issue with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang leaving. So And having said all of that, you know, at the end of the day, that team that was on the pitch could have, or probably should have, in terms of the individual ability, or on paper, if you like, was good enough to give Southampton a game. Let's go over let me just pick up this live comment. I'll come to the live comments in a minute, but I've got to pick up this one from Ricardo E, who says, this guy defends every Arteta decision. It's absolute nonsense. And you obviously haven't been watching or listening to this show for a very long time to come out with that. Because if you go back a few weeks, I was one of the people talking about whether he'd reached the end of the line, talking about how important it was that he turned this form around straight away because the pressure was building, the pressure was mounting. I spoke about his mismanagement of certain individuals. I've spoken about tactically that he needed to be braver. I've criticised Mikel Arteta at many points during this season, and rightly so. I just don't feel that him prioritising the Premier League over the FA Cup is something that we should be jumping on his back about. You know, you've also got to think about the financial aspect. Now, as fans, we love watching Arsenal win trophies, right? We all used to love the days out. Right now, we can't do it, but we all love the days out at Wembley. Great fun. You go with your mates. You spend the whole day. You enjoy it. You watch your team lift the trophy. There's nothing better. There's nothing better than a cup final day. But the reality is that isn't going to happen right now because of the circumstances in the world. But what is important to the club anyway is the finances. And everybody says, you know, I see it all the time on Twitter. You don't have to be an accountant. You're a football fan. It's not about being an accountant, is it? It's basic economics. You know, if you go to Asda and you go to buy a joint of roast beef and you don't have the money in your pocket, you can't buy it. It's as simple as that. It's not being an accountant. It's not being a genius. You know, you either have it or you don't. And right now, Arsenal don't bloody have it. And the prize money, the difference in prize money, and I actually looked this up earlier because I wanted to make this point on the podcast. And I thought, I bet if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it in the right way. And I'm going to take this as an example, right? Arsenal finished 8th last season, okay? Wolves, who finished 8th, they earned last season £141.4 million from the Premier League. 141. Finishing 6th gets you £148.2 million. Okay? That's almost 7 million difference. £7 million. Winning the FA Cup nowadays, do you know what that brings you in terms of prize money, in terms of revenue? Around about, give or take, £4.5 million. So for the club, financially, it makes much more sense to try and push up the Premier League than it does to win the FA Cup. Now, as fans, what we want is different. But often our objectives, our goals, what we want is not aligned with that of the clubs. And Mikel Arteta doesn't work for me. He doesn't work for you. He works for Arsenal Football Club. And he will prioritise and chase the objectives that the club set him. That's just how it works. Okay, that's how it works. As for everybody saying we shouldn't, you know, we've got no chance of finishing in the top 4. That's absolute nonsense. It's mathematically possible. Now, you know, and it's probably the same people that say we've had a losing mentality at this football club for years and years and years. I'll tell you what's a losing mentality. A loser's mentality is to look at that Premier League table, see the rest of the division dropping points left, right and centre, and not acknowledging that if we win on Tuesday and close the gap to, so be it if some of them have a game in hand. By the way, only one of the current top 4 has a game in hand over us as well. That's another fact. Looking at that, if you don't think that by closing the gap to 4 points, we don't have a chance of finishing in the top 4, you're the loser. That's the loser mentality. A manager should chase an objective, should go after an ambition for as long as it is possibly on the table. Until it becomes impossible, you chase it. That's what winners do. They chase it. They don't give up. A loser mentality is to sit there and go, do you know what, lads? I don't think we're going to make the top four anyway. So we'll take a little bit of a breather on Tuesday night against Southampton, and we'll look at or go into Old Trafford, for example, and saying, oh, you know what, mate, they're much better than us. Let's not bother trying it. Our chances of winning, they're not very high, so we won't bother. We won't try. That's what losers do. That's what loser mentality does. And I'm not even saying that we are definitely going to finish in the top four. I'm not even saying we're definitely going to finish in the top six. I'm not even definitely saying we're going to finish in the top eight. But for as long as there is a possibility, you have to chase it. That's what Mikel Arteta's job is, to try and achieve the targets set by the football club. If those targets, those ambitions that the football club set don't necessarily match yours personally, that's something you just got to live with. Because if fans ran the football club, if fans were in charge of everything, we'd go and spend fortunes every summer and we'd have been bankrupt 30 years ago. Sometimes you need to take the emotion out of it. As fans, we're emotionally charged. That's what it's all about for us. It's all about the emotion and the feel-good factor that our football club winning brings us. But the reality is that the club themselves, the people running the club, and you can have your problems with them and most of them are justified. But the reality is that the objective this season for Arsenal Football Club is to get back in the UEFA Champions League. And the FA Cup never has offered a route for that. So what's the meltdown about? Now, I agree that actually probably we should have made less changes. I agree with that. And I get that argument. I really, really do. But the kind of... It's like Arsenal fans are bipolar. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean, 1 minute, we're all back on the Mikel Arteta hype train. Everybody loves him. Arsenal picked up a few results, playing some good football. And then the next minute, we lose a game that actually we probably should have lost. And everybody's gone mad. And add to that the fact that we actually lost the game off the back of an own goal. We were very, very unfortunate in that sense. It feels a little bit harsh. It really does. Having said that, there were some individual performances as well that let Mikel down. There's no doubt about that. If we go through the team, you can't really put any blame on Bern Leno. He made a really good stop again early on in the game. I think it was Che Adams who just knocked the ball past Gabriel, left him for dead and got a shot away. The own goal, I don't even really blame Gabriel, to be honest. I mean, the cross comes in low. He's got to do something. He's got to stick a leg out. He's got to try and prevent that cross reaching its destination. But overall, his game was shocking. He was so far off the pace. It was unreal. And I know he's been out with COVID, and I know he only trained last week and all of that jazz. And he sort of not had as much training over the last month as he would have liked. But he was completely off the pace. It was really, really bad. And there were others who were really, really bad as well. Mohamed El Neni, just showing exactly what he is. And that is someone who from time to time can raise his game, can raise his level, can physically give you quite a bit. But actually, when it comes down to it, in terms of his technical ability, he's just not there. In terms of his footballing brain, it's just not there. I mean, to dilly-dally on the ball in the position he did, that ultimately led to that goal, I put much more blame on him than I do on Gabriel. And you could see it as well. The minute he gave that ball away, Hector Bellerin was going, he was barking at him. What you do? You can't do that. Mohamed, you can't do that. And he gave the ball away. And from then on, we were in trouble. We were in shit street. And that's what happens. Good quality sides will punish you. Did we have enough chances to get ourselves back into the game? Did we have enough chances to win the game? Yeah, of course we did. Look back at that first half. There was a really good break down the right-hand side. Nice cut back to the edge of the box. And there was Cedric. He had time to take it under control and he fired it over the bar from just inside the penalty area. Not good enough. You got to finish that. And then there was another really good opportunity in the first half. Okay, it was a lot more difficult in terms of the technique that was required. But Nicolas Pepe with a quick free kick, just dinking it over the wall with Gabriel Martinelli making that really smart run. He let the ball come over his left shoulder. Maybe he had time to take it down and then get a shot away. The point is that, we we had opportunities. We had opportunities in the second half as well. Not as many as I'd have liked. But Mikel Arteta keeps banging on about the fact that we have to be clinical. And sometimes that kind of rhetoric, it irritates me, because the reason you're not clinical is because there's a lack of quality in those attacking areas. Let's come on to talk about Willian. Again, I actually thought that in the first 10, 15 minutes, Willian looked like probably Arsenal's best player. Got on the ball quite a lot, drifted away from people, created spaces, took the ball forward, played a couple of good balls in behind that led to those chances I've just mentioned. But then he completely disappeared again. Nicolas Pepe wasn't as bad as everybody says. Did create opportunities for others yesterday, but you still want to see more from him. And then we made the substitutions. Thomas Partey made an instant impact in the midfield already. Straight away. Alexander Lacazette came on. It wasn't really his best display, but I appreciate it's not easy coming on in a situation like that. And then he brings on Bukayo Saka and ends up putting him at left back in the end. And it was just like the whole point of Bukayo Saka's kind of real influence growing, I would say, over the last 4 or 5 weeks is because we've scrapped that bullshit of playing him at the back. And we've put him in the final third, which is where he can do damage, which is where he can make things happen. And so to put him at left back, for me, just made no sense. It really, really didn't. And Gooner in the comments mentions Eddie as well. Just not good enough. Eddie Nketiah is just not good enough. But Mikel Arteta has made it very, very clear in recent weeks that in terms of the hierarchy of Arsenal strikers right now, he puts him above Following Balogun. He's made that abundantly clear. He said it in as many words the other night. So, this team, this Arsenal team, doesn't have depth. People talk about the sheer volume of players we have and the number of players we have. Yeah, we got numbers, we got volume. For God's sake, we had to leave players out of the registered squad because we had too many. But the reality is those players are just not good enough. Mikel Arteta will have learnt a lot over the last couple of months about who he can and who he can't trust. Unfortunately, they let him down. The circumstances are not ideal in terms of the number of games we're coming up. We put a poll out earlier on, actually, which I want to check in on the results because I haven't actually looked at it since we put it out, about whether Arsenal fans feel like he made a mistake in rotating. And it's good to see, actually, that there's a lot of sensible Arsenal fans out there who understand the situation we're in. And look, you can see it. It's reflected in the poll. Ahead of tonight's live podcast, was Mikel Arteta wrong to rotate the side in the FA Cup? Oh, there's a typo from me in there. 38.5% of you say yes, he was wrong. 61.5% say no, he was right to do it. Now, obviously, there's a caveat to that because rotation can mean rotating 3 or 4 players. Mikel Arteta changed 7. That's a big deal. And it obviously makes a big difference. And I actually accept that argument. That actually probably he should have been a little less extreme in his rotation of the side. I.e., he should have, he should have actually changed maybe 3 or 4. And maybe he went a little bit OTT on that. But again, as I said, the players that he left at home, Emile Smith-Rowe and Kieran Tierney, I don't blame him for that. I don't blame him for that one bit whatsoever. And that's kind of where I stand on it. Let's talk a little bit quickly about the latest on Martin Odegaard. He is on his way to London this evening. We were told earlier that he'll be travelling to London today ahead of a medical that is planned for tomorrow. So we're expecting probably, if not late on tomorrow, then on Tuesday, I think we'll probably get an announcement about Martin Odegaard. So fingers crossed that gets done, that gets over the line without any hiccups. Talking about the possibility of that becoming a permanent deal. Well, initially, we were told that it's not initially. We were told that there is no option to buy clause, and that remains the case. There is no option to buy clause in that loan. It is a straightforward loan deal that will, in theory, see Martin Odegaard return to Real Madrid at the end of the campaign. However, Real Madrid are not completely closing the door on a permanent deal happening if the club, if Arsenal and Real Madrid and everybody's circumstances come the end of the season are in a place where they'd actually like that to happen. Now, Real Madrid financially are in shit street. And you never thought you'd ever hear that, did you, about a club like Real Madrid with the prestige of Real Madrid? But they haven't signed a player in over 1.5 years or something. So they're struggling. There is a possibility that maybe talks could open come the end of the season, and maybe we'd persuade Real Madrid to part ways with him. But equally, if Martin Odegaard comes and does well here and persuades us, that isn't necessarily, obviously you want him to come here and play well, and that would be what makes you want to sign him. But the issue is that, of course, if he plays well, Real Madrid will probably be a lot more open to keeping him and, holding him as one of their own. And if not, then making that price probably out of the range that Arsenal could probably afford. So we're going to have to see how that goes. In other news, Mesut Ozil confirmed his move to Fenerbahce. The club confirmed it as well. He put out a letter, actually, to the Arsenal fans. I'm not going to read through it. I'm sure you've all seen it on social media. Thought it was quite classy, considering everything that's gone on. He didn't put any kind of slide digs in there. There was no parting shot at Arsenal Football Club from Mesut Ozil. It was quite polite. It was quite, respectful, if you like. So yeah, that's done as well. There's some talk about Lucas Torreira as well this evening, that he could be leaving Atletico Madrid and heading to Monaco. But of course, it's also been reported that there's some interest from a number of Italian clubs. Of course, Torreira not really playing at Atletico Madrid at the moment, so that loan deal hasn't necessarily gone as he would have hoped. But yeah, let's see how that develops, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a lot more detail on tomorrow's podcasts. That's Monday's podcasts, when we've probably got a little bit more information, a little bit more context around that whole thing. Let's go over to the live chat box. Let's see what you guys are saying as well. Chuck your questions in there. I'd love to get some of your questions and go through a load of those between now and the end of the program. Don't forget, if you want to become a member of the channel, if you want to support me in bringing you more Arsenal-related content and more general football-related content on the channel as well, then please do click the link in the description for more information on our membership scheme. We've got 3 tiers of membership available. Check those out. You can sign up and become part of the Chronicles of a Gooner family. Not that you're not if you're not a member, but you know what I mean. You can join our Discord server as well as receive a number of other benefits. And in the Discord server, we're talking Arsenal pretty much all day and all evening. So it's great fun, and I've really enjoyed it so far. So yeah, check it out. Right, let's see what you guys are saying in the live chat. Lewis Cooper, what's your predictions for Tuesday? Well, look, having just defended Mikel Arteta for rotating, he's got to get 3 points, hasn't he, to justify that? He's got to get a positive result at Southampton to justify doing that. Even if we don't get 3 points, the performance has to be good, has to be strong. You have to come away from there thinking, yeah, we should have won that game, for it to kind of justify what he did at the weekend. In terms of predictions, look, I'm going to stick my neck on the line and go for a narrow Arsenal win here. I actually, for those of you who read my piece on 90 Min and the build-up to this FA Cup game, I actually did predict a Southampton win. I predicted a 1-0 Southampton win, and lots of people were getting on to me saying, oh, you're being negative. What are you doing? Actually, I was just being realistic, and if you want me to give you a prediction of what I think the game is going to be, then I'll give you an honest prediction. But if you want me to just predict what I want to happen, then a lot of the time they're not going to be right. So yeah, prediction for Tuesday, I'm going to go for a narrow Arsenal win. I'm going to go for a 2-1 to the Arsenal on Tuesday, I think. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to go with. Mr. A says, Harry, why are we so bad when trailing? 2 wins when conceding first under Mikel Arteta, if I'm not mistaken. That's quite shocking. I think the reason we have a real problem when we go behind under Mikel Arteta is because of, there is a lack of creativity a lot of the time, isn't it? We've seen that, and I'm not talking about Saturday necessarily, but in terms of the last 5 or 6 weeks, we've seen that improve a little bit. But even still, there have been periods in games where we've struggled to create with any regularity. And I just think with Arsenal, it's got to a point where the first goal is so important. You know, you get that first goal, you draw your opponent out, and then the spaces get left behind, and then the game becomes stretched and open, and Arsenal can go out there and exploit those spaces. The difficulty Arsenal are having is dealing with low blocks, dealing with teams who sit 2 banks of 4, if you like, behind the ball, sometimes even a 5 and a 4 behind the ball, and try and make life difficult. As I say, it's a lack of creativity. And so when we get the first goal and it does open spaces and it does stretch the game, obviously that suits us a lot more. It's a problem though, and it's something we've got to fix. But until we get that little bit, until we get a little bit more, creativity in and around the group, I don't see that changing. And that's why at this stage, it's so important that we don't concede stupid fucking goals like the one we did on Saturday, i.e. Mohamed Elneny thinking he's Cristiano Ronaldo and dilly-dallying on the ball around his own penalty area for too long. So that's the problem. That's the problem for me. The lack of creativity means that we need games to be stretched. We need the game state to be right for us to be able to hurt people. And unfortunately, that's not always going to be the case. David Dahl says, how do you get on the Discord? If you sign up as a member, if you click on the link in the description to our membership page and you sign up, and then once you've signed up, if you click on the community tab, you'll see a members only post with a link to the Discord server there. What else have we got here? Selgier says, who would you play as right back? To be honest with you, I've always been one of the people that actually, I'm not going to say that I think Hector Bellerin's a top right back, but I don't always think that he deserves the stick he gets. What I will say, though, is I've been majorly impressed with Cedric over the last couple of games. I was impressed with him in the game against Newcastle in the Premier League. I thought he was one of Arsenal's standout players. Obviously Emile Smith-Rowe, Bukayo Saka, Aubameyang getting back on the score sheet. Those guys kind of stole the headlines. But I thought that Cedric was brilliant that night. I thought Cedric was quite good on Saturday as well. When you consider that he played on the left, which isn't his natural side, it's always a lot more difficult to play that position. Felt he could have done better with that opportunity that fell his way in the first half. And maybe if he did, the game would have been very different. But the fact that he did that, then he went on the right in the second half. I think he's earned a place in the side now. I think he's been really good. But I do expect the pair to rotate. I think that he's proven now that he keeps us at the same, if not a better level than Hector Bellerin. And so there's no reason now for Mikel not to chop and change those two and see how it goes. But, my opinion on Cedric is that he can do the job. But obviously the boss has a lot of respect for Hector Bellerin, sees him as one of the team's leaders. So I can't say with any confidence that he's just going to drop Hector Bellerin out the side and replace him with Cedric. I think both of them will get games. That's how it's going to be for a little bit. But if you're asking me now on current form, I'd go Cedric. Feridun Atai says, is Ainsley Maitland-Niles worse than Willian? I think he's a worse footballer than Willian. Based on Willian's career to date, I don't think Ainsley Maitland-Niles will go on to have a career quite like the one Willian has had. But on current form, how can he be? Ainsley Maitland-Niles didn't cover himself in glory when he played against Crystal Palace, albeit at left back. But Willian is just not doing it at the moment. He's just really not doing it. He's, as I said, he showed like signs of being a little bit lively in the early stages of the game on Saturday. But after that, he just disappeared. He looks like someone whose confidence is completely shot. And as a really experienced player, that shouldn't happen. You should have that belief. You should have dealt with periods like that in your career before and understand how to get through them and work through them. And it's not really happening with Willian at the moment. A lot of people were upset about his inclusion in the side. And I have to say, having watched the game, it's difficult to argue with that, isn't it? Gooner says the Discord server is therapy. It absolutely is. Guys, just a quick reminder, by the way, if you haven't already, make sure you smash the like button on the video. The more likes, the more it helps us get the video up the rankings. I can see there are a load of you watching us right now. In fact, on YouTube alone, There's about 135 of you. We've got loads of you on Twitter. We've got some of you watching us on Facebook as well. We've only got 55 likes on the YouTube video, and there's way more of you watching. So make sure you hit that like button. Let's get it at least up to 100. That would be great. Out and Out Gunners podcast says, "Are you happy with the Oda Hope signing? Are you happy with Oda Hope signing? You mean, am I happy with the Odegaard signing? I'm just going to assume that's what you mean. Yeah, I think it's a decent stopgap signing. If I'm honest, I think it's one that doesn't really put Emil Smith-Rowe's nose out of joint too much as well, which is important because we've all seen that what he can bring to the table of late. Yeah, look, it's a decent signing. It's not, it's not like when we signed Ozil back in the day and we were all jumping up and down, or when we signed our Sharvin or anything like that. But yeah, it feels like a shrewd and smart piece of business on the club's part. Avik asks if there's any news on Aubameyang. No, not at the moment. There isn't any news on Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. We were told it was a personal issue. That could mean anything, though, couldn't it? It could be to do with his family. It could be so many things. As I said right at the top of the program, I don't really want to speculate on what it might be because it could be something serious and that would just feel disrespectful. But Mikel Arteta has made it clear that we don't really know yet when Aubameyang will be back. And it's sod's law, isn't it, that he finally gets back into sort of goal-scoring form and then something comes up. But ultimately, as I said at the beginning of the program, if it is a family issue, then family comes first. And look, it's not ideal given the run of games we're going into, but you just got to deal with it. It is what it is. Some things are more important. And it's as simple as that, really. But thank you for your question. Matt says, what do you think about sending Pepe out on loan in the summer? Give him a chance to get a run of games, build his confidence, then make the decision on if we keep him. Yeah, I'm not against that. Feels to me like he's someone, as I said, whose confidence is in the gutter at the moment. He needs to play football. That's the only way he's going to build that back up. He needs to feel loved, needs to have an arm around him. Do I think that Mikel Arteta's management of him has been very good? I'd probably argue no. Look, I'm criticising Mikel. I do think that his man management is lacking a little bit, and I think that Nicolas Pepe is probably a bit of a victim of that. But having said that, you've got to take the opportunities when they come your way at this level, and he hasn't always done that. So you can understand why Mikel right now doesn't want to start him every week. It's a strange one, Matt, because I feel like half of the problem, not all of it, but half of the problem with Nicolas Pepe is that he's not playing regular football, and it's all very disrupted. He comes on as a sub in games, and then he doesn't play, and then he plays the next week in a so-called lesser game, and then he's back in the squad, and then he's on the bench again. I feel like all of that doesn't help Nicolas Pepe, and I feel like him not getting a solid run of 9-10 games back to back is a problem. But I also can see Mikel Arteta's point in that if he's not delivering, if he's not playing well, what the hell do you do? You have to prioritize the team, not Nicolas Pepe. So it's a difficult one for the manager at the moment to deal with. What else have we got here? Let's pick up a couple more. I'm just laughing at a couple of them that caught my eye. Abs Atara says, Harry, you're a breath of fresh air. You provide cool analysis when everyone is shouting out from the rooftop. Thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate your kind words. Jashar asks, do you rate our squad higher than United, City, Leicester, Liverpool, Spuds, Everton and Chelsea? I don't rate it more than United's, City's, Liverpool's, Chelsea's in terms of personnel. I think Tottenham, just because the fact they've got a couple of world-class players in Son and Kane, and we've only got one in Aubameyang when he's on full form, I think you could probably argue that Spurs is stronger as well. Everton, I don't think so necessarily. Leicester, again, it's a difficult one. The only ones I'm going to say definitively are, I'm going to say United, City, Liverpool, Spurs just about, and Chelsea. Leicester and Everton I'm on the fence about. Leicester have just been smart in their recruitment, but I do think they've got weaknesses in that squad as well. And, they're not as... I don't know, man. I watched them today against Brentford. I watched most of that game. And they did make some changes. And of course, they're without Jamie Vardy now as well. So they've lost one of their talisman. I think Arsenal's squad in terms of quality is probably on par with theirs. I just think that they all understand the system. They know exactly what they're doing. They've got a much more experienced coach in Brendan Rodgers. And I think all of those factors, plus the fact that there is no expectation at Leicester, not in comparison to Arsenal anyway. If Leicester, look, cast your mind back to Leicester's season last season, right? They were flying at the top of the Premier League, third. They were in second for a long period of time, and people were talking about them maybe repeating what they did in the 15-16 season and going for the title. And they spectacularly blew it at the back end of the season. They allowed Chelsea and Manchester United to come from miles behind them and take those remaining 2 Champions League spots behind Liverpool and City. And they fell out the top 4, but nothing was made of that because the expectation isn't there. So Leicester have the advantage as well of being in and amongst the big 6 without being one of the big 6, if that makes sense. And I think that helps them. I think that helps Brendan Rodgers because we've seen him under pressure previously. He could have taken Liverpool to win the title, and under pressure he buckled. We saw him almost take Leicester into the Champions League last year, and he buckled there as well. So Brendan Rodgers not having that expectation on him at that club, I think helps them a lot. And so I actually think that they're probably not as strong in terms of a squad, in terms of the individuals they have as those other teams that you've mentioned, barring maybe Everton. Junior Gunner says, Harry, I find you swearing oddly satisfying. You know why? Because I don't do it all the time. It has to be from the heart, from my stomach. It has to really come out with some meaning. Mark talking about the game coming up against Southampton on Tuesday. He says Southampton won't sit back and defend on Tuesday, so it's up to us to be effective and create chances. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Let's pick out this comment actually from Xander. He says, Bill Dixon, George Graham, Willian Gallas, Lassana Diarra, Yossi Benayoun, Petacek, Eddie Nketiah, David Luiz, and Willian. Apart from Mr. Graham, we need to stop shopping at our local Poundland. Let's see what else we've got here. Xander also says, if you're enjoying the content, we'll smash those likes. Yes, please do that. Let's check back in on the likes. Have we improved on the likes? Are we any closer to the 100 mark? No, we're on 7. Well, we are closer, but we're on 70 still. And there's plenty of you watching, guys. So make sure you hit that like button. It doesn't cost a thing. What does cost a thing, if you're interested in it, is our membership pack, where you can get access to a number of benefits, including our Discord server. Check out the link in the description. Click on it. It'll take you then. You can see the free tiers, and we really appreciate your support. Let's see what else we've got. Mark also raises the point that I spoke about a little bit earlier on about Mikel Arteta having 2 keepers on the bench. Mark, I don't believe that Mikel planned to have 2 goalkeepers on the bench. You always take a spare goalkeeper with you in case one of them pulls up, in the warm-up or anything like that. I don't think he intended to do that. It's simply because Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who travelled down, who was part of the group and was scheduled to take part in that game, had to leave for personal reasons, and so the second goalkeeper was thrown into the squad. So I wouldn't make too much of that. It's not an issue for me. I don't think that was Mikel's intention. Archangel says the difference between Willian and a bucket of shit, the bucket. Oh man. Here's a good question. Against low blocks, this one's from Xander again. Against low blocks, do you think we could get away with a midfield 3 of Partey, Emile Smith-Rowe and Odegaard and allow Partey to be a one-man wrecking ball? I think you could switch to that later on in the game if you felt like if you were chasing a game, if you were chasing a goal and really needed it. I actually think that Partey and Xhaka as a pairing works quite well. And I actually think that Partey enjoys and can impact the game a lot more going forward than probably people give him credit for. So I'd actually like to see the Xhaka, Partey, Smith-Rowe or Odegaard trio and see Partey get forward and get involved in those sort of more advanced areas in the pitch. I think that Partey is a lot better at that than people give him credit for. I think he plays some really decent forward passes, as we've seen when he sort of came on the pitch against Southampton. He played some really good passes, to be fair to him. But, as some of those players, in particular, people like Eddie Nketiah, Nicolas Pepe right now, they couldn't finish their dinner, let alone an opportunity. So, yeah. Zwei says, Mikel ruined Pepe after a positive enter last season with the Willian signing and persisting with him, even though Willian is a stopgap. Going back to the Pepe thing, it's an interesting point. How must Nicolas Pepe have felt, having performed quite well actually at the back end of last season, and then all of a sudden Willian's come in and Willian's taken his position, and despite still playing shit every single time he takes to the field in an Arsenal shirt, Mikel Arteta continues to persist with him. And you wonder, if he had persisted with Nicolas Pepe as much as he's persisted with Willian, would he have got more benefit out of that? It's a debate worth having. It's something worth thinking about. So, yeah, it's a good point. Let's see what else you guys are saying. How much would I be willing to accept for Eddie Nketiah? This one comes from RW. Purely based on his age, I'd want about £10 million for Eddie Nketiah. I don't think you're going to get any more than that. There were rumours about West Ham paying silly money for him. That ain't going to happen. I mean, what has Eddie Nketiah shown to suggest that he can score regularly in the Premier League? Absolutely nothing. Anyone who pays that is an absolute mug. But then again, West Ham paid all that money for Sebastian Haller, didn't they? And then we saw how that one worked out. Lee Casey asks, what was my lineup for Tuesday? I'll do this quickly off the top of my head, but we will go into it in a little bit more depth with some reasoning on the preview show. But in terms of my lineup for Tuesday, I would go Bernd Leno in goal. I'd probably go with Cedric at right back. Mind you, Bellerin played the other day as well. I'd go Cedric at right back. I'd go Tierney at left back. I'd go David Luiz and Rob Holding, because Gabriel just looks so out of sorts. In the midfield, I'd go Xhaka, Partey, and then I'd go Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, Aubameyang if he's back, but if not, Martinelli, and then Lacazette up front. That's what I'd go with. But as I said, obviously we're going to get some injury news. We're going to get some information on the team ahead of that game. There'll be a press conference ahead of that one. We'll probably get some information tomorrow. So I will do that again with the preview show, and we'll look at it in a bit more detail. But off the top of my head, that's what I'd go with. So Leno, Cedric, Holding, David Luiz, Tierney, Xhaka, Partey, Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, Martinelli, just because I don't think Aubameyang is going to be back, and Lacazette up front. Let's see what else you've got here in the live chat. Selgear says, so who was the second sub goalkeeper that got thrown in, Runarsson or Ryan? Who wasn't in there before Oba's omission? We will never know, my friend, because nobody knows until the team is handed in to the FA. And obviously then that gets given to the press, and then all the news gets out. So we would never know, to be honest with you. I would imagine that probably it was going to be Runarsson, just because Matt Ryan signed the day before. I think that they took him along to try and integrate him with the group. I don't know this for a fact, I'm guessing, but if I had to guess, I think it's probably Runarsson who's been training with the team. Obviously Matt Ryan wouldn't have even had that opportunity yet. Maybe an afternoon session on Friday, I don't know. But I would have guessed it was probably Runarsson of the two, but I cannot confirm that 100%. Gooner says, Harry, do you think it would have made sense to at least have had Emile Smith-Rowe on the bench yesterday? Yeah, but it's all hindsight, isn't it? You're trying to rest these players. You're trying to rest Tierney and Emile Smith-Rowe because they've got a problem in terms of their fitness. They've got issues with their fitness. And then, you know what? If you bring them on with 20 minutes to go, and then Arsenal score, and then the game goes to extra time, then they've ended up playing like 50 minutes that you didn't want them to play. So, again, it all comes down to the prioritization of the competitions, and whether people like it or not, the club, not the fans, the club have the FA Cup in third, and they have to believe that they can challenge for the top four. They have to believe that they can win the Europa League. Otherwise, what's the point in playing? So that's what the club have decided. We don't know as well how Emile Smith-Rowe's been in training. We don't know how Kieran Tierney's been in training. We don't know if, obviously they've got so much sports science going on now. They measure them in so many ways on the training session, and they judge their conditions and their conditioning based on a lot of that. We don't know what that told the medical stuff. We don't know what they told Mikel Arteta about the risk of those players potentially picking up another injury. All that happens behind the scenes, and we don't know jack shit about it, but it is a big part of the modern game. Sports science is huge. And one of the things they'll look at the risk of that player picking up an injury. And if that risk was, in the eyes of the staff, too high, then you can understand why they weren't involved at all. But look, hindsight is a wonderful thing. And of course, you'd have loved to have had him there to call upon in the event that we went a goal down like we did yesterday. But it's just hindsight, isn't it? But thank you for the question. Don Saki says, "Hi, Harry, would you sell Pepe and Willian in the summer?" Mate, who is going to want them on their current form? Who is going to come and pay you anywhere near what we paid for Nicolas Pepe? Who's even going to stump up half based on what he's doing right now? This is the problem. Arsenal have to persist with Nicolas Pepe for me. And it's not great. It's not ideal. But I think we have to persist with that one. As for Willian, I'll try and come to some agreement and just terminate his contract. It's a bloody waste of time, waste of space in the squad. He's blocking other players like Nicolas Pepe getting regular runs of games. He's blocking even somebody like Reiss Nelson, who, I don't necessarily think is good enough, but, he deserves more of a chance than Willian is getting at the moment. So, yeah, that's that. Going back to the Eddie Nketiah point, Dominic says, if Ryan Brewster was 30 million, why can't we get money for Eddie? Because Sheffield United are not in the market for a striker, Dominic. It's as simple as that. That was one of the most stupid moves in the transfer market I've probably seen in the last 10 years. Honestly, it was that bad. Brewster had gone and scored goals. He was scoring goals in the Championship, wasn't he, in the second half of last season? Eddie Nketiah's got no form. Brewster had that form going into the summer. Nketiah's got none of that. And Harry Land, and I agree completely, says Eddie's stock is going down. Let's pick up a few more. Comments, a few more questions. Shen Main says, when is Odegaard going to be announced? Again, this is not any inside information, but I think it's probably going to be, if not late on in the day tomorrow, then it's going to be on Tuesday, I would imagine. As we know, as I mentioned earlier on, today, Sunday, it was reported that he was on his way to London with a medical scheduled for Monday. So we expect that to take place. And then, assuming there's no issues, which I doubt there will be an announcement made as quickly as possible after that. As I say, Tuesday probably feels like the more likely. Maybe we'll get it tomorrow, sort of later on in the day, which would be good. But then also you've got to consider that Tuesday's a match day as well. So if it doesn't get done by the end of tomorrow, we might have to wait till Wednesday for that. But I expect in the first half of this week that we will get an announcement on the arrival of Martin Odegaard. The Malaysia says, I can see that Arteta has a system now, but Willian, Pepe, Nketiah, Niles and Reiss and Willock clearly don't fit the profile he needs. But we have no choice because our depth is poor. I agree with that. We're starting to see a system being put into place, aren't we? Conrad Campbell says, hi, Harry. I genuinely thought Willian was brought in to be a mentor to the likes of Martinelli, Saka and Nelson in the same way as Luis, but now it looks a total waste. Yeah. I agree with you. And that's one of the reasons I was actually for the move at the time, because I thought when you looked at that front line, when you looked beyond Aubameyang, Lacazette, Pepe still a bit raw, Martinelli still very young, Bukayo Saka still very young, Reiss Nelson still learning. You looked at that front line beyond those two I've just mentioned and you thought, what stands out? What jumps out here? And it was inexperience. And so to bring somebody in like Willian, who is at a certain level in terms of his quality, felt like actually quite a smart move, and a move that would aid the rest of those guys and aid their development. But unfortunately, it hasn't worked out like that. Archangel says, are we scared that Man United will win the league? Not yet. Not yet. I'm not quite there yet. And I say that because, a lot of it comes down to the manager as well, and making sure that mentality doesn't drop off. And you look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Pep Guardiola, who, I would say City are the favourites at the moment, but you look at the difference between Pep Guardiola and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in terms of what they've achieved as managers, and they're fucking miles apart, aren't they? So at this point, I'm not scared that Man United will win the league, but they're certainly in with a shout. And if they continue this form, if they can keep Bruno Fernandes playing at the level he's playing now, then yeah, they're up there, and with good reason. Freddie Owusu says, Harry, do you think we would still bring in a left back? One of the words that, and I've said this already a couple of days ago, but in terms of using this phrase that I'm about to use, but one of the key things that Fabrizio Romano said on the podcast the other day was, it's all about opportunity. If an opportunity comes along, Arsenal will try and take it. Arsenal will take advantage of it. But unless an opportunity presents itself, I can't see Arsenal bringing in another player. That's my personal opinion. I think if we get Odegaard over the line, and of course, we've already brought in Matty Ryan as a backup goalkeeper, it feels like that's probably about it from Arsenal's perspective for now. But having said that, as I said, if an opportunity comes along, then I wouldn't be surprised if Arsenal took it. A lot of reports linking us with Ryan Bertrand. Of course, he's still got until the end of the season on his to run on his Southampton contract, and then he's a free agent. So will Arsenal just feel like they probably can try coast through? Not coast through, that's the wrong word. We're not exactly coasting through anything, are we? But Arsenal will just take their chances, get to the end of the campaign, see how it goes, and then sign up Bertrand on a free transfer in the summer if he's someone that they feel could do good things for them, could be a good backup to Kieran Tierney. Or do they try and come to some sort of agreement with Southampton that will see the player leave the club a little bit earlier? We're going to have to wait and see. I'm sure Arsenal will be looking at other left backs as well. It was reported at the back end of last week that they're looking at 5 or 6 different left backs. Will we be able to get one over the line this week? I don't know, because of course the transfer window closes very soon. We're talking about up until the end of the week. So yeah, it's going to be difficult. I think that, as I said, Freddie, I think they're on standby. If an opportunity comes along, they will try and take it. But I'm not 100% confident that we will get one. I think I'd be pleasantly surprised if we did, but I feel like this is the end of our business. And also another point, actually, just popped into my head. I'm also wary of us filling up the squad again with stopgap players, because the whole point of moving the dead wood, if you like, out was that we didn't have this problem where we have players who we don't necessarily see as part of the longer term future hanging around stinking the place out. And I know if you sign them on shorter contracts and for less wages, it doesn't have as much of a draining impact on you as a football club. But I am conscious of this whole filling up the squad with stopgaps again, and then we can't get rid of them, and then we're back in the same position we were before we moved on all the others. Do you see what I mean? I think there's a balance that needs to be found between streamlining the squad and thinning it down to a level whereby we've got what we think is needed, but not really a great deal more than that, creating space for us to then develop it with the players that we do want. That's important. And I'm just a little bit concerned that, you go get Matty Ryan, you go and get Ryan Bertrand. Are they 2 players that Mikel Arteta would have looked at and said he wanted? Or are they just 2 players who an opportunity came along to snap them up, to plug holes for a couple of seasons, and that's what we did? So there's a balance, I think, to be struck there for sure. Right, that brings us to the end of this live edition of the podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I know it's a Sunday night. I know people spend Sundays with their families and and stuff, and I really, and obviously have to get up early for Monday morning work. So really appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you to all our members as well, keeping the chat alive as always, and to everybody else who contributed in the chat box. Make sure, if you haven't already, that you smash that like button. It is so important. As I keep saying, let's have a quick look and see where we're at. We're only on 89. Come on, guys, hit the like button on your way out. Let's get it up to 100 before we jump off of the show. Don't forget, if you want to become a Chronicles of a Gooner member, click the link in the description and you can check out our 3 tiers of membership, and we'd love to have you on board. I can see the like count creeping up. We're on 93 now. Come on, 7 more of you. Let's get it up to 100 by the time the outro plays. That would be great. We'll be back tomorrow, Monday, that is, with a couple more shows. If you're listening on the audio, there'll be more shows coming out today. So lucky you, you don't even have to wait as long. But we'll be back very, very soon. I'm sure there'll be more transfer news. If not, more players coming in, but some confirmations over the course of the next week. Members, keep an eye on the Discord server. Going to be asking you for those Q&A questions and giving you some information tomorrow on what the members-only bit of content is going to be this week. And that's it. Ciao. Take care. Good night.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.